welcome to Before Floor, the pregame edition of Five on the Floor, brought to you by the Five Reasons Sports Network. I'm your host, Jonathan, aka Three Piece Combo, and today we're joined by a multitude of guests, including two of our regulars from the Five Reasons, or the Five on the Floor podcast. We got Ethan J. Skolnick, and we got Brady Hawk, and then we have two of our regulars, Timmy and Mateo Mayorga, joining us as well. Now, before anything else, if you guys are joining us live, make sure you guys like the video. Make sure you guys subscribe as well. It helps us out a lot. And it's free, right? It's something you can do to support all of our Miami Heat content, and it's absolutely free. And make sure, I think when Ethan wants to jump in and say something, it looks like.
No, we're literally 7 away from 20,000 right now.
7 people. There's more than 7 people.
I was going to give away, Jonathan, I was going to give away a T-shirt for 20,000, but I'm on to people. What they do is they unsubscribe and resubscribe. So I thought we would lose 100 subscribers if we did this. So no, we're not going to give anything away. Just get us to 20,000. That's all.
And then, if you love Miami Heat sports, just subscribe anyways. Like, no, ESPN isn't going to be covering the Heat, so listen to us. So make sure, like I said, if you guys are joining us, make sure you guys like the video, subscribe, and as well, make sure you guys hit up markbrownpa.com. Go to marcbrownpa.com. If you're young and with a family and you want to make sure, if anything does happen to you in this crazy world, that all your financial assets are taken care of, go to markbrownpa.com. He is a fellow Heat fan. It says marcbrownpa.com. Give him a call at 954-786-5661. And then we also, like I said, if you're young and with a family, he services the entire North Lauderdale area, and he's a Heat fan. So if you're going to give your business to anybody, make sure it's not a Lakers fan who just moved to Florida for the tax breaks. Make sure it's a Heat fan. Give Mark Brown PA a call or visit him at marcbrownpa.com. Now, if you're looking for a spot for all your daily fantasy, you want to make sure you go to prizepicks.com. Use the promo code 5, that's FIVE. They'll double your deposit up to $100. So that's pretty much $100 free money. If you want to play a little bit more safe on the risk side, you can actually go a flex play. So even if you get one of your bets wrong, you can still get some money. And if you want to play a little more risky, you can go with a straight play. They have a couple of different picks right now. They have, like we were saying earlier, Jimmy Butler's at 23.5. We have Tyler Hero. He's gone up from 18.5. He's actually at 21.5 right now. So if you played him earlier in the season, you might have gotten some free wins with him with the lower score that we were talking about. So like I said, go to prizepicks.com, use the promo code 5, and make sure you get your deposit matched up to $100. Gentlemen and ladies in the comments, if you're watching as well, we're coming off of a homestand where we're 1-3, right? A lot of negative takeaways from this, but there is some positive aspects as well. So before we go on to the road trip that's going on right now, I want to talk about what you guys saw from this homestand. Ethan, I'll start with you. Give me one positive thing you saw and then one negative thing you saw outside, of course, the record. And you're on mute.
Wouldn't be me if I wasn't muted. Look, as far as things that haven't gone well, we discussed this on 5 and Floor that have gone well. Let's start there. I mean, I think Tyler Hero has gone well. I think that is the one thing. You can see the development in his game. You can see the things he needed to work on that he has worked on. There's some fit questions now with Kyle Lowry, which we spent a lot of time on 5 on the Floor yesterday. So I encourage you to check out that episode. It's up right now, the Kyle Lowry episode. But, I think overall, this is as good as it's going to be expected from Tyler. Okay, this is the next stage in his development. Now the key thing is, him not disappearing in the fourth quarter or them not running actions for him to get him free, because I think ultimately the ball should be in his hands a lot of the time at the end of games, as long as he's not turning it over. They have to find other ways to get him those opportunities. Things that have not gone well, I mean, let's just put it this way. Every concern you had about the construction of this lineup and this roster has played out so far. And that's not what I was anticipating when I was in the Bahamas talking to people who were so excited about this team. What were your concerns? Was Victor Oladipo ever going to be healthy enough to justify the way they were talking him up the entire offseason? And already you're dealing with a mysterious injury now to the other knee that you can't get any information about, because that's the way that the Heat operate with this stuff. And we don't know when he's going to contribute. And they were counting on him. This is where Greg and I differ on this one. They were counting on him like that. He was, whenever I talked about them running it back, the conversation that came, or the strong words that came from the organization who listened to the podcast were, we're not running it back. You're not accounting for a healthy Vic. They don't have a healthy Vic. So that is one of the problems. And the other issue is really Kyle Lowry. I mean, we can talk about things he does well and things he helps him with, but he's a $28 to $30 million point guard. Like, we're talking about him like he's a charity case. Like, this is somebody who has to perform better for them to go anywhere. Those would be a couple of things for me.
Timmy, what did you see from the homestand?
It just seemed like always bad, but I really like Caleb before he missed that game, with the suspension like Tyler. But like Ethan said, if you from the Bahamas, you really thought that okay, Tipo and Yurt would have been a huge part of this rotation, and they have yet to play. So I'm actually not as down and out than most fans because I feel like when they come back, it might look a bit better. But the issue is when will they actually get on the floor? I think that's kind of the. I mean, we know that the Heat they aren't going to let outside noise or anything distract them or make them make any moves. So I'm just curious though to see how long do they go 1-10, like which won't happen. But if it does, like what's the button that they push? We know that the other teams that are going through worse right now, the Sixers, the Lakers, maybe they blow it up first, and the Heat might jump onto one of those trades and maybe snag a KJ Martin or chip off Duncan. So I think it's an incomplete team without two of the biggest guys that we expected to play. But I do like Jimmy is Jimmy, Tyler's Tyler. Bama just feels like he's talked the most he's ever talked this summer, but he's not walking the walk right now. And I don't know if that's him or who he's surrounded by. But Bama always figures it out. So, but I'm just encouraged to see that at least Tyler and Bama getting to build their chemistry because they are the building blocks of the future team. And for right now, so I'm encouraged to see what those two guys are doing. And Shoes, even though he had I think 0 for 8 like last game, he looked incredible off the bench those first 3 games.
No, excellent points there. And shifting tunes to what Ethan said about Kyle Lowry, it seems there's just like a disconnect from Kyle Lowry, in my opinion, from Kyle Lowry and the entire team, in a way of during the summer, he was having contradicting words from him and Pat Riley regarding his shape. And then recently he was talking about having the ball in his hands. And Brady, you posted about how much he has in the ball in his hands. So I want you to dig into that. And is there a way that Kyle Lowry can right the ship, or is that ship sailed for where he is in his career?
Yeah, I don't have a problem, I guess, with Lowry having the ball in his hands because like the time of possession isn't super high. It's just like he's just the swing man that's just kind of getting guys involved. I feel like more of the issue is that, for one, he's running a lot of pick and rolls and he's just not really scoring out of them. Like I think it was like second worst in the league, only, which is a crazy. The person below him is Chris Paul, but 0.38 points per possession as a pick and roll ball handler, like that stuff is you can't really have a positive offense when you're doing that. But my bigger issue is that all game they run stuff, as I've been talking about, with Hero and Bam pick and rolls. And then they also have the element where they run stuff with Kyle and Jimmy pick and rolls. And then they get to a close game in the fourth quarter going down the stretch, and it's just Lowry, Bam, pick and roll after Lowry, Bam, pick and roll. And when you have a guy that's not scoring out of the pick and roll and then a Bam that needs space to operate, like these things are just not really just equaling good offense. So I don't really know what they do at this point. I think moving him off the ball, like you were just mentioning how he was talking about the things on the ball and off the ball, ultimately, you'd want him being a high-level catch-and-shoot three-point shooter, and you could kind of work everything from there because he's not a high-turnover guy in terms of, yes, some of the stupid hit-ahead passes and kind of bad-time lobs could get you there, but he's under control in a sense where you're not worried about that. You're more worried about him just hitting the three consistently off the catch. So if they could figure out a way to do that, keep putting the ball in the hands of Tyler and the hands of Jimmy, who both look good, I feel like that's just pretty much what they need to do. And this is an interesting matchup because there's obviously two talented guards on the other side that I don't think he's done a bad job defensively so far. I think we talked about it last night. Like if there's one positive, I think he's done a good job fronting in their game plan and kind of keeping the ball away from the guys in the post. And he's going to be guarding the Jeremy Grants and the Josh's Harts tonight when they're doing all the switching. But don't get blown by Anthony Simons. Don't get blown by Damian Lillard. It's harder to, I guess, do than say because those guys are so talented. But that'll kind of be the major points, I guess, tonight.
So, Mateo, I'll get to you on this one. Switching sides to the Portland Trailblazers. They're 4-0 this year. They look really good. I mean, their power rotation, adding Jeremy Grant and Anthony Simons taking that next step. Damian Lillard through 4 games, averaging 33 points a game. What have the Portland Trailblazers been doing right? What have they been doing right this season to be undefeated?
Well, Jonathan, the Trailblazers are a middle-of-the-pack defense. They give up 114 points a game. However, they are great at scoring in the restricted area and behind the three-point line, excellent in the corners and above the break. And this is a team that gets others involved and open. 27 points a game are created with the help of a screen. And when others take shots, others get back and others crash the glass. 11.5 offensive rebounds are recovered for this team. They could present some problems to an opponent that's kind of small and has their best perimeter defender who's a big out on the outside. But another thing that I really like about him and I want to mention is the ability to have 3 ball handlers. Speaking of Hart, Winslow, and Anthony Simons next to Lillard and Nurkic presents some real wrinkles for the defense because it gets the ball out of Lillard's hands and 10 eyes from the defense aren't always on him. It can be very dangerous to have him come off a screen or curl around him, having him come off ball. So they're a very deadly squad on the offensive end, Jonathan.
Yeah, and the main guy of that, Damian Lillard, right? 41 points in 2 of his last 3 games. So, Brady, I know you touched on him a little bit. With the point of attack defense or with the defense of the Miami Heat just not being on par as it was last year, just not being as connected, what do the Heat need to do schematically to slow down Damian Lillard and what he's been doing on the scoring front?
Well, I think what they're going to do is you're going to see a ton of Bam on him, which is good when you're saying Bam is going to be guarding the other opposing team's best player. It's bad when you think, I know the fan base hates the soft switching and the idea of these guys and the smaller guys playing down low. And I don't think you're betting on Tyler Hero putting up 15 boards again like he did the other night. So, I kind of don't mind it against this specific team, I'll say, because I've been talking about mixing a little bit of drop. Like, I think that's a possibility against certain teams like Toronto. Like, I don't mind it in that sense. I think zone could work. But with 2 elite pull-up threats, like, I don't want to see much drop. And then it comes back to the point that if Damian Lillard or Anthony Simons is on the floor when Dwayne Dedmon's on the floor, I just don't know how you stop it. Like hopefully their idea is, okay, we have to put Gabe Vincent on the floor with him because we need him to navigate screens and try to just mess things up. But they're going to pick that stuff apart. So I know that's been a focus, and they're going to have to find things away or kind of around it. They could potentially go smaller against this team because this is a team that goes smaller. I know somebody, their backup 5 is somebody people are very familiar with, and Justice Winslow. He's been playing a ton of 5. I made the joke about kind of must-see TV between the centers in Highsmith and Winslow, but like if there's a game to try out the Jovic thing or one of the kind of the smaller size big men, they're not big men, but like guys that'll play the 5, this is the game to do it because a game on the road in Portland can swing off a Damian Lillard and Anthony Simons getting hot, just torching your backup big.
Yeah, and to that point, Miami would not have the offensive output to respond to that. So, Ethan, when it comes to trying stuff, right now, Miami 28th in the league in points per game, and even worse in the fourth quarter at 29th in points per game. Obviously, a small sample size, but where do the Heat look for that offensive output? Muted again.
As always, immunity thing.
As muted. It's the new mic. I think Brady hit on this a little bit, actually, in the sense of they get away from their best actions as the game goes on. And it's, they have some places they can go, but they don't have a lot of automatics. Okay. Like some teams will have automatics or they'll have an ISO guy who can just create out of nothing, but they don't really have that. So the offense has to function. Essentially the offense is in a lot of ways what gets these guys open. Because they don't have dynamic isolation players. And so, if the offense is not functioning properly or one piece is missing, it does feel to me a little bit, unfortunately, because I know I don't really want to go here because I know this is what fans were predicting. And we were trying to say, well, this may be different. It does feel like 2 seasons ago, even though they've had a full training camp. It feels kind of like this is just an extension of the last season. And that guys are going through the motions. I didn't see games 2 and 3 live, but I've watched them now after the fact. I just don't see it. Like I don't feel the energy from them. I know we've talked a little bit on 5 and 4. We're going to get more in depth about what the players expected this offseason. They expected changes as much as I think the fans did. And sometimes, we can say, well, guys don't want to hear their names in trade talks. But then also, if they want the team to be better, they want to see the team trying to make improvements. So you're kind of caught in between. And I just want to make one point on this before I get to the office. The Dedmon thing to me it speaks to this summer completely because what they were doing, and this was not their fault necessarily, okay? And I talked through the whole process with them, and I know what they were trying to accomplish. But the Durant asking out of the Nets changed everything, okay? It froze the league for a while, and it also put the Heat in a position where they couldn't do anything because they had to wait. So they had to wait on the Hero extension. They had to wait on trading Duncan Robinson, potentially to get themselves a starting 4 that they might have had going into camp that might have been a more experienced player than Caleb and kind of leave Caleb in the role that he was in. And also the Dedmon contract. Like, that contract was strictly signed so that he's tradable. And now, essentially, and look, he's killing them. Like, I mean, he's literally killing them. Like, I mean, his play has declined to such a degree, which I think was somewhat anticipated. And like Brady said, you can't play drop with him. It's just not going to work. You can't switch with him. Offensively, he takes shots that Bam won't take. So it's just you've boxed yourself in a corner. But the entire purpose of that was not so that Dwayne Dedmon could be a core player on this team. Eventually, that was going to be Yurt or Jovic or whatever. It was simply so that he had a tradable deal, and now you're having to play the guy with a tradable deal who everybody knows you want to trade. It is they were put in this box, and we can argue about whether they did the best job here, but that contract signifies the whole situation for me. It's that everything was about the transactions that they're trying to make, but they couldn't make any right now, and the team didn't get better.
It was all about the setup, but we weren't able to execute the finish. You know what I mean?
Not yet. We're frozen, basically. Like, I probably will be here on my internet at some point.
But anyways, lots of points there. As far as this team goes, let's get into some rapid fire real quick before we get into predictions. And Timmy, I'll start with you on this one because you talked about how Bam isn't walking the walk right now. Mm-hmm. Over or under 14 field goal attempts today?
Against Nurkic and basically just Nurkic for sure, because when Nurk goes to the bench and he has to go against Winslow, his old teammate, he's gonna get at least say 16, 17. I'll go over.
Mateo?
I would go with the over. I think he said around 17 or 18 at media day, and he's averaging around 11 right now. I think in certain coverages, Nurkic is going to give him a ton of space, and like Tim just mentioned, he's going to have a lot of opportunities when that man is sitting on the bench. So I'm going to go with the over tonight.
Brady, Damian Lillard, over or under 30 points tonight?
Probably over, to be honest. He's been killing it. Like, I think it just kind of feeds into this. Like, that's not saying that I think they'll lose with that. Like, I think that's obviously possible. We've seen in the past to win with that type of performance, but the matchup, I guess, just on paper isn't great. So once again, like, I don't mean to just like make this a Dedmon thing, but like, try not to have Dedmon on the floor when Damian Lillard's on the floor, and then I'll go under. But like me thinking about the fact that he's going to be on the floor with him, I'm going over.
By the way, Prize Picks, Jonathan, is 26.5. So I mean, if we feel good about going over on 30, I would go over on 26.5. I will say the one I played though was Anthony Simons at 18.5. To me, that might happen in the half. Honestly, I just he's torched them before when he's gotten opportunities. I don't see anything changing.
Averaging almost 20 a game during the season, so that's still a good number for him. He's doing over that. Brady becoming the number one Dwayne Dedmon hater isn't something I expected to see.
Whoa. The numbers don't lie. Brady is just Brady is just showing the stats. He's not hating.
I've seen him make the case for Bam Defense Player of the Year just through the first 4 games. Like, him alone, his numbers are making the case.
I think I saw something, Brady, where like they score 144 points when he sat down. That's insane. In 54 minutes that Bama sat, the opposition has scored 144 points. That's bad.
But is Yurt going to make that better? That's the question. I don't want to hijack the show, but I mean, that's my question. Like,
we would hope.
I think anything is better than Dwayne Dedmon. I think Yurt will be better than Dwayne Dedmon.
Mm-hmm. I think you're at least getting something offensively and rebounding. Not to cut you off, but just throwing it in there. Like, at least he's giving you a little bit more around the rim and at least probably better rebounding, because I just don't see like even the boxing out and rebounding hasn't been there. So like, you just need some type of and let me just throw one other thing in. Like, it feels like you talk about running it back, but sometimes you need change. Like, we know that, and that's why you do trades. I think it's possible to just make change with your own roster. Like, running it back with your same rotation can hurt the team. Like, you're talking about not being in it. Like, throwing Haslam in there, as crazy as it sounds, changes the kind of the idea of the team in general and the energy. Not I'm saying to do that, but like the Jovic thing and the Jamal Cain thing and the Yurtseven thing, that changes a little bit of energy that I think this team needs, and it just seems flat right now.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. They're missing a spark. So switching tones a little bit, Ethan, Miami over or under 102 points tonight?
I mean, I'm gonna go over on it. I do think that some of their shooting is going to correct. I still think there are opportunities against this Portland team. I actually think Bam's going to eat tonight. That's why I'm going over on Bam. I think he's at Prize Picks. I think he was at 17 and a half, I believe, 16 and a half. I'm going over on Bam tonight. The opportunities will be there. So I expect him to be more efficient. But I think they'll go over in this game, and I think they're still going to lose. But that's just where I'm at with it. So,
all right. So before we get to predictions, one last question, Mateo. I'll let you swing on this one. Jimmy Butler over or under 6 free throw attempts.
Definitely over. I think the only person on that team that could really stay in front of him is Jeremy Grant. So he's going to force a lot of help and receive a lot of touches. So I would suggest at least double-digit free throw attempts. Definitely over.
All right, so Timmy, kick us off with our predictions and then give us a couple of key points for tonight win.
I think he's going to win in a very, very close game. I think one of the shooters, I think maybe Max is going to go off. And like Ethan said, I think Bama's going to need for sure some of the shooting returns. And I think these turnovers are going to go down. God, please. But I do think it will correct itself because like I listened to 5 on the floor this week. The numbers are just, I think Alex said that it's just too much. It's too many turnovers. You can't be a slow-paced team and a high-turnover team. Like it just not gonna happen. I think the pace will pick up because the Blazers like to run. I like what they did by then basically like Mateo said, just a bunch of ball handlers between Dame and Nurk. So they're gonna pick up the pace. But they're tiny. Like we talk about the Heat being small, and even though they're bigger on the wings with like a hot. I always remember the story. David West said he retired when he was unable to back down Josh Hart. So Josh Hart is a big guy on the wing, and I like their wings, but they're still small, and I could see Jimmy and Bam really feasting on this roster, and I think that he's going to win if the turnovers stay down.
To your point with the turnovers, Portland is third in the league at 20.5 fast break points per game, right? Can't turn the ball over against that team. Not something we can do. Mateo, what's your prediction for the next game? And then give us some key points for the win.
Ooh, I'm going to go with a Heat win. I think tonight is the start where this team starts to get it together, but they really got to limit Damian Lillard. I think it's going to be hard to do. And really, I would suggest, icing on him to force him into a trap because reluctantly, they're going to pass to the roll man. So on that one, I suggest they also crash the glass well because I mentioned it earlier. They recover 11.5 offensive rebounds in at least 2 games. Miami was had a 20 second chance points scored against them in multiple games, and I think those were back to back. So they got to avoid that.
Ready?
Yeah, I also actually think the Heat win this one. I think they need to win this one because you're looking at after this game. Not saying must win this early in the season, but after this game, 2 of the next 3 are against the Golden State Warriors. So, you kind of need this one. I think they win. I think the reason they win, I think Tyler's going to have to be big, which is an obvious statement. You're going to need Tyler to be big most nights to win. But going against Nurk in that drop, I think his pull-up's going to be there. If he's hitting that pull-up, all you need for them is just force them to adjust. And then talking about Bam earlier, the first thing they're going to do if Tyler keeps torching them is put Nurk at the level of the screen. And then all of a sudden, now Bam's opened up. And now Bam, that's why this team has to revolve around those two. And Jimmy can kind of be the spray guy to just sporadically score at this point in the regular season. And the other guy I think actually plays really well, I think, is Gabe. I just feel like the lineups, the coverages he's going to see, I feel like he's been good. And you look at the numbers, the just raw numbers and stat sheets, and it's wait, he wasn't that great actually in that game. He didn't shoot it great in that game, other than that Boston game where he was just kind of going crazy. He hasn't had great stats, but I still feel like he's played really well. And they're going to need him against 2 of these type of guards in Lillard and Simon. So I think Vincent has a big game, and I think Miami wins this one, I guess, on the first night of back-to-back.
Nash just got ejected. Timmy, want to digress on that a little bit before we close
Yeah,
this
so the Nets and Bucks game, Steve Nash, I feel like it's his first ejection for his career. It's interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. Ethan, take us on the predictions and close us out.
I don't have as good a feeling about this one. I don't. Maybe I've covered too many games in that building, and it's a tough place to start a road trip. It is. It's an adjustment situation there. It's going to be loud, and I don't feel right now, and I'll have to get around the team more than I have been lately. But something looks off to me. It doesn't. they don't look connected, and I don't know, again, if it was the trade stuff and then they anticipated something, or if it's just, sometimes it could just be you got so close to the finals and you didn't get there, and now you got to start over from scratch. I mean, it's like playing a video game, right? Where you're almost to the end, and then it's like you lose your third life and you got to go back to the beginning again. I just sort of feel like that's where they're at. And I don't see Jimmy's numbers are fine, but he doesn't have that thing yet. We haven't obviously seen Bam, follow through on everything he said he was going to do. Lowry looks, I mean, frankly, cooked, honestly. And you've got Tyler, in the starting lineup, who's doing the things you want him to do, but it's not making the team better, even though their starters numbers have actually been pretty decent. And so a lot of the blame is going to fall on him, because it always does, even though it's not deserved. So there's just a lot of stuff there right now. You have Dedmon, who's not performing well, shouldn't be in the rotation right now. I don't know. I think this thing is heading towards implosion quickly, which actually might be the best thing here, rather than kind of the sleepwalk that they did 2 years ago, because I do think then you're going to see Pat act. I do. So it's taken me a few days to come around to this, but just watching them, can they get it together? Yes. Are they going to get it together tonight? No. I think they lose tonight. I think they're going to be 1-5. And then I think that, I think that's where they're headed. And I think that's, obviously then we're going to have very difficult conversations here about what they need to do, because that's the direction that I'm going in right now. It just doesn't look right to me. Something is off at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, to your point, as far as not having the energy, last year Ari Latia said, like, everybody needs to try hard on this team for this team to be good. Like, everybody needs to be cutting with impact. Everybody needs to be doing that thing. And we saw that in the second quarter of the game against the Raptors that we won, but we went away from it in the second half and went back to isolation ball. So I'm agreeing with you, Ethan. I don't think we win tonight. Out of the 4 games that Portland has played, the 3 of them they've scored over than the highest time we've scored tonight. So I just think the offensive output is just too high for Portland. I think they're going to pull away later in the game. And to Ethan's point, I think it's better that we figured out that this team needs change now rather than closer to the playoffs. So if it's bad, let it be bad quick and let it happen right now. So I agree with him. Do you have anything to close out before we send it over to Alejandro? All right. So make sure, if you guys are watching, make sure, like I said, like the video. It's free. Make sure you guys subscribe to us as well. Go to check out Mark Brown. Go to marcbrownpa.com for all your financial planning, or give him a call at 954-866-8513. Or also make sure you go to prizepicks.com for your daily fantasy code. Use the promo code 5. That's FIVE. Double your deposit up to $100. Let's go, Heat. Alejandro, close us out, buddy.
All right, guys. Thank you for joining us here on the pregame show. We start the West Coast trip tonight facing the Portland Trail Blazers. The Miami Heat will be playing in about 30 minutes, about half an hour. We're going to be getting ready for that game. So let's get you to that point, listening to some of the players and some of the guys talking about the present moment for the Miami Heat right now. They won 1 of the first 4 games of the season, and now they're going for 5 games in the next 7 days out west. So let's continue with our pregame show, our pregame coverage here in the 5 Reasons YouTube channel with Erik Spoelstra. Let's see what Erik Spoelstra said about the 4th game of the season, when they lost to the Toronto Raptors. Here we go.
Erik, they closed on a 25-9 run after you seemed to regroup. What happened there to the finish?
Yeah, I mean, they were putting the ball on the floor. It was mostly Siakam collapsing our defense. We just weren't great on those reads, whether we were sometimes overhelping or sometimes, players like that will draw extra defenders and the next guy has to rotate. We just didn't scramble enough out of those drives. They made shots. They made some shots, big shots down the stretch, even the ones that we were defending pretty well. I mean, Trent's shot in the corner was not an easy shot. I thought we defended that possession very well and scrambled. And then offensively, I'll have to look at it. They jammed us up on a few possessions, but, we had some looks throughout the course of the game. and we weren't able to knock some of those ones down, some of the easy ones, or not the easy ones, but open ones. And we also had opportunities at the beginning of the fourth just to really kind of extend that, maybe see if that could go from 6, 7 points to 10 points, and sometimes a couple shots here or there, can get you there.
Back to the offense for like the last 6 quarters after the first half against Toronto, it seemed like the offense kind of struggled a little bit. Is there a common theme you saw in those 6 quarters, and just the looks you guys got as far as mid-range to 3-point? What did you think about them?
Well, you have two very committed defensive teams, so you might not get the cleanest looks the last 6 minutes of the game, and at that point you just want to make sure you're getting the ball where you need it to go. I thought we had some good paint opportunities, that we just weren't able to capitalize, or just ended up being knocked out of guys' hands. And then you also have to make some, and they made some shots. They made some big ones, in the last 6 minutes, and that probably was the biggest difference, in the course of the game. It was very competitive, back and forth the entire game. You're not going to give up a lot of good, clean looks, so you have to just you have to execute and get the ball where you need it to go, and then trust it from there.
Erik, there have been a lot of times over the years where you guys go out west, and I know it's not a particularly long trip, but something just seems to click, whether it's just being just by yourselves, just the unit coming together, whatever it is. One, do you think that's needed? And two, is this an opportunity where something like that can happen?
I always feel like, these trips can be an opportunity, but particularly, right now where we face a little bit of adversity, I don't think anybody would have anticipated, with starting out with this home stretch, that we'd be 1-3. That's sometimes the nature of this league. It's tough. You can't just mail in victories. You have to earn them, and sometimes things don't go exactly how you want them to go, and these are opportunities to come together and develop some collective resolve. And then when we get on that plane tomorrow, yeah, of course, it's human nature. You're thinking, these are not easy games that you're going out there for. And in a perfect world, we would be going out there, 4-0. But that's not the case, and so we have to rally around each other. There's not going to be anybody else but us out there, and this is an opportunity for us to really start to connect, face some adversity on the road, and hopefully grow from that and get some wins.
With the changes to the rotation from last year, how much are the bench units still kind of figuring out their identity and what they want to do?
Yeah, that's part of every season. But right now, the identity is help contribute and help us win. Sometimes that can be the best clarity of all. Get all the clutter out of your head, play productive minutes, really defend at a high level, share the basketball, and help us win until we start to find some rhythm and a flow. That won't necessarily happen right away, but you can still win games. You can still be productive, and that's just what we have to wrap our mind around right now.
But you talked about the stuff late. I think it seemed like Jimmy was at the scorer's table there for a couple minutes.
Yeah,
just no stoppages.
With that, yeah. And I didn't have a timeout.
Right.
That frustrated the heck out of me. I almost considered, taking a foul. If I, not the take foul, but in the half court, and in retrospect, I probably should have. That was too much time, him sitting on that sideline. Particularly as it's every possession really mattered. And I thought we were getting, decent execution and decent looks, but we also wanted Jimmy Butler in the game. And we sent him to the table with, enough time, typically. But, the way things had gone earlier, I didn't have any timeouts.
Spo, coming into this game, you guys were 7th in the league and getting to the rim, and I know everything for you guys is about getting the wins, and so the start to the season has been exactly what you wanted. But as far as your offensive process, the way that you guys have been getting to the rim specifically, wanted to get your take on that, and just if there's been a difference between your approach in that aspect between the past season and now,
In what regard?
as far as getting to the rim.
Like,
Just because coming into this game, you were I believe 7th or 8th, so I just wanted to know your thinking on that as far as the offensive process there.
yeah, I mean, we've had an emphasis every year, to ground and pound and to get to the rim, get our, paint touches, and that symbiotic relationship with our 3-point shooting and those paint attacks is really important. And being able to try to control the game, with opportunities at the rim, at the free throw line, things of that nature. The way it's played out, it's early. We haven't gotten necessarily the 3-point attempts that we would like, but our assaults and attacks at the rim have been up, and now it's a matter of trying to get it all together. And then also, the 19 assists, that's not enough for us. We didn't really make some of our open shots. There were great passes and the right reads. So I think that's a little bit deceptive. I think we probably would have had, closer to 25 plus, heading to 30 assists if we made, some of those. But obviously we're going to keep on working until we get all of that working together.
Toronto had some success in transition, but in the half court, the defensive numbers are actually really good.
Yeah.
And how you felt the guys held up, considering how much they were chasing the size mismatches most of the night.
Yeah, that was fine, but it was devastating what they were able to do in transition. Those were in a tightly contested game like this. That can be the difference. I don't have my glasses, but the transition. Oh yeah, that's the game. That's the mic drop right there. Okay, thanks.
All right, Erik Spoelstra got a little mad at the end right there. So that's what he's thought about the game 4 of the season for the Miami Heat, the second one against the Toronto Raptors in 3 days. They won the first one, they lost the second one, they finished 1-3 in their home stand. Do we have their starting lineup for the Miami Heat, the starting 5? We're going back to the usual lineup. Caleb Martin is back on it. So it's Kyle Lowry, Tyler Hero, Jimmy Butler, Caleb Martin, and Bam Adebayo. But let me check something real quick before we continue, because let me check. Yes, just confirming that's the starting 5. So Kyle Lowry, Tyler Hero, Jimmy Butler, Caleb Martin, and Bam Adebayo. That's going to be the starting 5 for the Miami Heat. Let's continue with our pregame show here on the 5 Reasons YouTube channel. Remember, we are close to the 20,000 subscribers here on the 5 Reasons YouTube channel. So please, if you haven't done so, please subscribe to our channel right away. Let's continue with Jimmy Butler and see what he said about that particular loss to the Toronto Raptors.
You guys don't plan to start the season with a 1-3 homestand, but as a leader on the team, what's kind of the message to the guys as you head out west?
We got to start winning. I think we got to do all the little things right. When talking about rebounding and getting back, being in the gaps on defense, sharing the rock, stuff we already know. Ain't too much really to say, but we definitely got to take care of home court, and we haven't been doing that. So now it's time to do the hard thing and go win on the road.
Jimmy, the numbers on the half court defense are pretty good, but Raptors had 27 fast break points. Where do you see the things that need to be cleaned up in transition?
We got to get back. We talked about it before the game, and we talked about it last game as well. We just didn't execute it, and it's because everybody's been aggressive, crashing the glass. But man, when that ball takes a bad bounce and it's a long rebound, it's like a layup or an open 3 on the other end. We fouled a little bit tonight too. Just got to be better overall.
Jimmy, I know you've stressed defense. That's the calling card of this team, and I understand that. But since the first half on Saturday, the offense has really struggled. Is there a particular reason beyond threes not falling? Are you getting the right looks? Are you getting enough going to the basket? And do you think the offense sort of needs to be tinkered around with a little bit?
I don't think the offense was that bad. We missed some shots, yes, but overall, I think we moved the ball decently well. Probably could have had a couple more assists if we would have made a couple more shots, the game may have looked different. But I felt like for a stretch there, we got stagnant, but then we got back to moving the ball. We just got to take care of the ball. I think we turned the ball over a little bit too much. But other than that, I didn't have a problem with our offense. Yes, go.
All right, that was Jimmy Butler. He said he didn't have a problem with the offense, but it was a really low scoring point, a really low scoring game for the Miami Heat against the Raptors. They did have a better defensive production in that game, even though they lost it. All right, let's continue now with Bam Adebayo, and let's see what he said about that game, the game for the season tonight. Miami Heat plays the first one of 5 games out west, one against the Portland Trail Blazers. That's going to be tonight. Then they're going to face the Warriors, the Kings, the Warriors, and the Kings in that order. Here we go.
Jimmy was saying that the team talked about transition defense after last game, before this game, and Toronto had 27 fast break points tonight. What do you think needed to be cleaned up in transition?
We got to get back. When the shot go up, we got to get back. We got to have guys back, load into the ball so they can't get easy transition buckets.
The talk after the first 3 games has been about the defense, but offensively, what did you see that were some of the issues tonight?
Shots just didn't go in. That's the biggest thing. Like I said, we're in the gym all the time, every day, trying to perfect our craft. Shots just didn't go in tonight. That's the thing. It's a long season.
Was it just Precious finding seams to get in there for the rebounds, or was there sort of some reason that he was able to be so dominant for them on the boards tonight?
We missed a lot of shots. We shot, 34 from the field. That's a lot of rebounds out there for one person. Black Lives Matter, people.
All right, that was Bam Adebayo, short and sweet, talking about what's going on with the Miami Heat, what happened in that game 4 of the season. Let's continue our pregame show. We have about 20 minutes, a little bit less than that, to get ready for our game tonight. The Miami Heat facing the Portland Trail Blazers. Let me see if we have it right here. Should be around here. Let me check real quick. All right, let's wait. Yes, let's no, because we're gonna lose it. Okay, let's then download this. Give me a second here. Let me read some of your comments as we get this episode ready here. All right, Colin Christopher says, I'm sorry, but Jamal Cain and Jovic deserve some playing time. I agree. I want to see both of them. They were the best guys, the surprises from the pre-season, so why not try it a little bit? David Smith said, don't even want to see Dwayne Dedmon tonight. We should have traded for KD, ban for KD. Yeah, at some point that was a possibility. Jay Smith said fans were sold on internal development, and that hasn't happened yet. So we'll see what happens. 2-6 could be at the end of this road trip. Insurance by Lynette says, then let's implode. When Ethan was talking about the situation that could be going inside the Miami Heat locker room, he doesn't feel it's quite right there at this moment. All right, let's continue our pregame show with an episode of 5 on the Floor. What's going on? What's up with Kyle Lowry? The guys talk about it.
Still the 5 on the Floor on the 5 Reasons Sports Network. Thanks for joining us on your favorite podcast app. We're now on Red Circle as well as Spotify, Google Podcasts, and Apple Podcasts. We're also on the 5 Reasons YouTube channel. Make sure you like and subscribe. 5reasonsports.com. We do not have a paywall. And check out the great sponsors of the 5 Reasons Sports Network. We tell you all the time about our fantasy sponsor. It's Prize Picks. Use the code 5, F-I-V-E. Get your initial deposit matched up to $100. That's at prizepicks.com, or you can download them on the Google Play Store or on the App Store. Make sure you're using 5. That's the code 5, F-I-V-E. Get your initial deposit matched up to $100. And now, today's episode.
Down the Biscayne. Yikes. 5 on the floor, ride for my dogs. Where here's the thing, you can check the score. Hustle hard, couple scars, wearing bubble frauds. Just like Butler said, you in trouble, y'all. Kept the floor playing, got it all banned. Y'all seen the block, stop with one hand. And Pat we trust, it's power, have the guts. We're here to bring the heat, y'all can hang it up.
Welcome to 5 on the Floor, a daily insider show on the Miami Heat and the NBA, featuring Ethan Skolnick, Greg Sylvander, and Alex Toledo, plus others from the 5 Reasons Sports Network.
All right, Ethan Skolnick back on 5 on the Floor. Here's today's floor plan. I got Greg Sylvander. You can follow him at Greg Sylvander. You got Brady Hawk. You can follow him at Brady Hawk 305. And at some point here, we'll also have Alex Toledo. You can follow him at Tropical Blanket. Look, there's a lot of different ways we could go today. The Miami Heat are 1-3. They're going out on the West Coast. They've got at least 2 challenging games out there, including one against a team that looks like they're maybe the best team in the West again. And people aren't feeling great about it. So there are a lot of different directions that we could go. And we discussed going the direction of sort of, is the answer on this roster, which is something we've discussed. We've kind of gone around it a lot, and we'll probably get into that more. But we're going to talk today just about Kyle Lowry. And I think that this has been the topic through the first 4 games of the season. We are now, still, again, just 5% of the season gone at this point. There's plenty of time for him to kind of get in the kind of shape that they wanted him to get into, play the way consistently that they want him to, and also to start to justify the salary. But right now, and I'll go to you first, Brady, where are they in your view from a basketball perspective with Kyle Lowry?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit weird because I'd say 2 out of the 4 games have looked like very bad, I'd feel like. And the other 2 out of 4, it's been pretty stable, I'd say, because I think the other 2, again, the first one against Toronto and the other one against Boston, he had 17. But from a general sense, I know Alex has a bunch of numbers that are probably better than mine to go over. But there was just some base ones that I was looking at, which was that Kyle has like a pick and roll ball handler. I know some other people on Twitter were talking about this generally. But he's putting up 0.38 points per possession as the pick and roll ball handler over 4 games, which is just very bad. Like just a 0.38, I think it's the second worst. And actually the worst is actually Chris Paul as we stand. Like it's just he's 1 for 11 from the field on those attempts. And it just speaks volume because you're talking about a guy that's has the ball in his hands a ton, because another topic in terms of stats is that the touches on this team are just all over the place. Like Kyle has the most touches by far, which I think is at 76. And then Jimmy's second, which is like in the lower 60s. Like it's just all over the place, that if he's going to have the ball in his hands this much, you're going to need him to be a plus offensive player. And then you obviously say, we talked about before, the pull-up stuff and the ability to score around the rim. But we also, I think, need to see a little bit more playmaking-wise in terms of better decision in transition and obviously setting up guys in different ways in the half court. But not to give away everything, but I'll say something just from recency bias and talking about this last game. It's funny to me because we constantly talk about the different actions they run. It's the hero band pick and roll and how great it looks. Like obviously late in games, hero can't turn the ball over 4 times in the fourth quarter, but generally that's probably one of their better actions. Their other better action is Kyle Lowry and Jimmy Butler screening for him, or the inverted version of that. Like that 2-man combo, Jimmy can get the switch on the smaller point guard and they can operate from there. My issue with kind of the way they've worked Kyle Lowry into this offense is that they basically say late in games, and this happened last season as well, we're going to run Kyle Lowry, Bam Adebayo pick and roll play after play after play late in games. Like it's not something you're going to a ton early in the game. So why are you feeding into this action late? And the reason I don't love the action is because you're basically asking when they go under the screen for 1, Kyle Lowry has to take that pull-up 3. 2, he has to be a plus kind of 2-on-1 player down low and a threat to score. And we haven't really seen that at this point. And 3, Bam Adebayo is going to have a lot more space in the hero pick and roll compared to a Lowry pick and roll. So I guess the only plus version is that you feel more comfortable with him settling your offense, I guess, late in games. But my take is that they don't need somebody to settle their offense right now. Like they need somebody to get them buckets late in games. They don't need somebody to settle them, even though the turnovers have been all over the place. So it's just kind of all over the place, I guess. And that's kind of the opinion, I guess, with how he's played. It's been all over the place. I thought the shooting would be better, I guess, when they're moving him off the ball. Like there was some pretty wild misses specifically in this last game. So they just can't. And that first number I said about the 0.38 points per possession, you just can't have a positive offense for long stretches when your point guard is putting up those type of numbers. So that's kind of where I stand, I guess, on the offensive side of the ball.
There's a lot of ways to look at this situation, and later, and I know, Greg, you and I will get into this, kind of the deeper roster issues here, the deeper future issues here, and all of that. But again, from a basketball perspective, and I'll go to Alex on this because I know he's got like 12 notebooks of numbers right now. But from a basketball perspective, when I watch Kyle Lowry play now, I'm just not expecting much. Like that's the issue here. I think I watched Kyle in Toronto. I watched Kyle at his other stops before he found his home in Toronto. You always felt like he was going to take over a game at some point. Like he was just going to say enough of everybody else and just do it. And we've seen that. The only times we've really seen that have been when most of the core has not been healthy alongside him. But when they've had the full group together, this is a continuous thing. And it's just watching him. I don't expect him to beat his man. I don't expect him to make that pull up, okay, or go aggressively into it. And I do think that some of the stuff that we talked about the first year that was important, okay, forcing Bam to be more aggressive and all that, some of that stuff is just happening on its own. I don't know that Kyle Lowry at this point has much of an influence on that, which again kind of then puts it back on where he is from the basketball perspective. All right, Alex, what do you got?
So to me, all right. So I'm not going to go too deep into the stats just because I wrote a lot of stuff down just for me to have as a reference point. Cause I think there's a lot of relevant stuff when you talk about the Heat's problems through 4 games. But since this episode is Kyle Lowry focused, like I just want to point out that, after looking into some of his stuff, the one thing that shows in the numbers that matches the eye test of 100% is that he is not converting from anywhere. He is shooting 30% or below from every single spot, right? When you're just talking about whether it's from 3 in the mid-range or at the rim, he is not converting. The positives are he's taking more or less about the same shots per 75 as he was last season, which I know you wanted him to take a little bit more. The difference is that he's taking about 1 less shot per 75 in the mid-range and 1 more at the rim. The other thing that's good is that his free throw rate obviously this is all through 4 games, so it's very small sample size theater, but his free throw rate is a lot higher than it was last season by about 14 points, if I remember correctly. Just, everything points to him not making any shots right now, right? And that's kind of simplified, but it's also the truth, right? And I have more here just as far as like his assist percentage is way down from last season, even though the turnovers are down, so is his assist percentage. He has the lowest usage between him, Tyler, Jimmy, and Bam. And so it's kind of confusing when you measure that up with him having the most touches. I think all of it, what it really points to is that with Tyler in the lineup, he's had to make some adjustments, right? We talked a lot about how Tyler was going to play more off ball in the starting lineup. In reality, Kyle is playing more off ball. And that was the part that was left out from that earlier quote posted by Heat Nation Com on Twitter that everybody reacted to, that Kyle said right after that he wanted to generate more shots by having the ball in his hands a little bit more potentially, that it's basically, he is willing to do whatever the offense needs. And sometimes that calls for him to be an off-ball guy. And that's been the reality of it. I think it's that he will get the ball in his hands, but he moves off of it quickly. And he's always been a quick passer, but I feel like he is doing even less with the ball in his hands this time around. And like Brady pointed out, by the way, because I think that might be the most relevant stat, is if you can't like rely on Kyle Bam pick and roll specifically, and also Kyle Jimmy, because we've seen that in the past with Jimmy as a screener, like that's a problem. That's a problem because that was one of their most reliable forms of offense last season. So I wouldn't be surprised if that comes back up. I wouldn't be surprised when the shooting, if and when it does come back up. But there's no doubt about it. He's got to be better. And I do agree that it's been about, 2 decent to good games and 2 very bad games so far.
The thing you mentioned about like how quickly gets the ball out of his hands, that's exactly what I was thinking when you talked about the discrepancy between the touches and the actual plays made, because
his assisted shots are way up. So like he's, you know what I mean? He's doing
right. No, he's definitely playing more off the catch. But what I'm saying is he doesn't keep the ball very long, which is good in a lot of ways. But sometimes it's like, okay, you would like him to keep it and actually try to probe for something, and he doesn't. But let's get to the larger issues here, Greg. Where do they go with this?
It's a tough situation because it's Jimmy's buddy. Actually, I want to clarify that because I came after Kyle on Twitter today related to the fact that he acted like he never heard Pat Riley's comments about his conditioning, which I thought was a really weird way to approach that, to just act as if you didn't hear it at all. So I've been kind of lukewarm on Kyle's approach to coming back this season as a member of the Miami Heat since then, essentially. which I think you guys were the ones who got those comments on media day, if I remember correctly. You guys are the video source for that. So kudos to y'all to drive up my resentment towards Kyle here. But he said all the right things. Like, I actually found a couple Toronto media articles, which I will share following this show, where they got his quotes in full context with every single sentence and detail mixed in there. And he really was super articulate in what he's trying to get at. But what he's essentially saying is that everybody's playing differently. And to me, he was brought here to navigate that and make that seamless. So the fact that that's an issue and he's calling it out, to me, that's difficult. You guys know where I stand. I think that if you're going to be paid the way that he's paid, he needs to have the ability to individually step up in ways that other guys can't. And it's scary when you see Max Strus be able to impose his will on a game and Kyle Lowry not have that same ability, considering what they just paid Kyle. So to me, I am, for right now, very much open-minded to any deal that involves Kyle Lowry. I do not know that this is going to be the type of player-organization relationship that ends beautifully. Not that it'll end badly, but I just see that for me, something feels off, and I don't know what that is yet. I don't want to speculate too much there, but I'll say this: I wouldn't be surprised if Kyle was a member of the Miami Heat. Like he was not a member and Jimmy was here a little bit longer. I thought of them as a package deal, Ethan. I don't think that may be the case, actually.
Thing is, nobody is ever a package deal when it comes down to, you know what I'm saying? Like, we can talk about, okay, Jimmy basically brought Kyle here and Jimmy is going to insist on Kyle staying here. And I know it's a different relationship than it is with Goran, but we talked about the same thing with Goran, right? Like Jimmy would do anything to keep Goran here. Well, but then, his buddy was available and wanted to come and Goran was no longer here. So I don't think that's the thing here. I think it's this. When we talk about the money here, and we have to talk about the money because they made a significant commitment to him, 3 years, at close to $90 million. If you're looking at that, okay, you want a guy who's going to completely embrace what you're doing. And it just hasn't felt the whole time. I'm not talking about any of the personal stuff he dealt with last year, because that's a totally separate thing.
Of course not.
You're right.
Yes.
But I'm just saying, you're right. It just hasn't felt like a fit for a lot of this time. And I know, the way that Erik speaks about him, in glowing terms about being QB1 and all the rest of this, and the way he reads the game. I think all of that stuff is true. I think that it is all accurate, but again, there's just something missing. There's something missing in his time here so far, and it has reflected in some of the numbers. All right. After this break, what I want to get into, we'll get into some more specifics on the numbers, because this is something I think where the numbers matter, but also kind of what you're just sort of sensing matters. We do want to tell you about a new spot.
All right, that was part of the episode of 5 on the Floor. You can find the whole episode here on the 5 Reasons YouTube channel. We are getting ready for the start of the game. It's 9:58 right now. The game's supposed to start at 10. We know it's going to take a couple of minutes more to actually start, but we're going to finish our pregame show here. Thank you for joining us. I know it's late, and I know it's going to be a late one for most of us, so please stay here. We are going to have a postgame show, so as soon as the game's over, please come over here and join us for the post-game show here on the 5 Reasons YouTube channel. Have a good night. Enjoy the game, and we'll see you back later tonight. Bye-bye.